So I'm so happy and privileged to be part of the faculty development program organized by CUSAT. And I would also like to extend my thanks to Dr. Devi Saumija and Dr. Chinju, and appreciate all the kind of women-related and especially gender-related work that you are doing currently. So my topic that is given to me is gender-based violence. So when I got this topic and and I'll have to speak as part of a faculty development program, and I have seen that you have been listening to so many aspects of it, the dynamics of gender and how gender is being formed and the role of it in education, culture, and so many of that sort. So instead of factory perspective in terms of gender-based violence around us, as Dr. Nirmali pointed out, I thought of maybe shifting your attention to certain aspects. Mainly, it is mainly involved with the origins of talks about how violence is originated when it comes to the humanity as such, and the causes of it, and what kind of violence that we are experiencing right now. I think without understanding history, it's very difficult to point out or maybe narrate and even find solution through right now. And the second aspect is the types and forms of gender-based violence, and which will be getting a Mentimeter activity for you to do, and some of the consequences. Okay, what's going to happen to people or maybe to the entire humanity if gender-based violence would go on for a long time, or maybe whatever that we are all experiencing that we are being part of. And is there any psychology behind gender-based violence? And if you want to explain the psychology aspect, maybe the psyche of the people who are perpetrators, or maybe the witnesses or the survivors, what would be that? And how do we prevent from a personal, political, legal, or maybe social point of view? And what are the interventions that we can do? And I also have a video for you, and I hope that Dr. Chinju is aware about it, and we'll have a discussion and we'll end the session. So that's the plan. So before we start, the collective violence part, or maybe the origin of collective violence part, let's have a look at this particular picture. So we can see that it's a circle, and there is a there is a section for men, and there is also a section for women. So when we talk about gender, as a person who have done some kind of work in terms of LGBTQI and transgender mostly, I mean, the literature availability of the literature on LGBTQI is not as great as that of women when it comes to gender. So the pictures and maybe some of the words or some of the studies that I'll be quoting might be more of women related, but I mean also in terms of LGBTQI. Okay, I hope you understood. So when we look at gender as a perspective, or maybe gender as a category, or gender as a social construct, I would like you people to understand it from a broader category or classification way. So we have caste, we have religion, we have so many other kind of, maybe let's say language, geography, cultural difference. We have so many differences, we have so many classifications. And even though we all belong to Homo sapiens, the broader species, we have been brought into, or we have been divided into very small categories. So as, when these subcategories are, getting more and more and more, the discrimination, the stereotypes, or maybe the decisions that we will have to take also would be getting much more complicated. So when it comes to gender, the same thing is applicable as well. So let's look at how the violence as such has been formed. So I think maybe we may have to just go back to the history classes that we had in school or colleges. So how actually, the violence has been originated historically. And when we look at the archaeological support, or maybe the archaeological data, we could see that the origin of violence is very broadly, I'm just giving you a very broad perspective into, four different aspects. Okay, the first one is prehistoric humans. As we are aware, the only data that is available in terms of prehistory is in terms of cannibalism. Okay, where humans would be eating humans, which means that the same species would be eating the same species. So the question here is that, did the eaters and the eaten belong to the same community? So did we have anything called, community life as such during prehistoric times, and whether the same, people in the similar community have been eaten? Okay, so this question is unanswered. The second one is that when, people move on, during the time, when 12,000 years, okay, after prehistoric times, so even 12,000 years, we can see that the collective violence was still absent. Okay, the collective violence was still absent, but archaeology being used, which are sharp, which could be used for some kind of violence, and they have also found out, skulls and some other remainings, okay, which had some kind of injury, so that indicates that some kind of violence was existing. So there was also a period when the collective killing each other, or people were, uh, becoming violent in terms of something else. It could be something else which is not very clear. So the question here, it's in terms of, was the individual a member of the victim's community or an outsider? So if, every historic human is killing another human, I mean individually, why are they doing so, and what is it for? So this needs to be understood. So, where would be the category? Where would be the classification? Are they belonging to the same group, or are they belonging to the different groups? This question is also not completely answered when it comes to archaeological data. And the third era, we can say that, uh, at that particular time, there are evidences of that, large number of people who have been killed, and they have been buried, and the large number of skulls have been retrieved. So it indicates, something called human sacrifice. So that's the time when the conflicts between human beings have developed. So this is also something very, very important for us to understand, that people, instead of moving from one place to another, like settling down. When they started settling down, what they call it as sedentarization or migrating, and when they start settling down, they found that there are kind of territorial nature, or maybe privacy and ownership, those kind of aspects have come in, and people have moved into small communities. People have moved into small subgroups, and they started conflicting each other. So probably we can say that this was the time. It was in 13,000 BC. There, we have this kind of, let's say, intergroup conflict, or maybe, the collective violence have initially been originated. But still, there is a question in terms of, was it intra-group or intergroup aggression? So these are, the third question that we could ask. Okay, so when did this group formation originated in the history of human beings, and how, violence to procure something, or maybe to develop superiority, have actually been originated? Then the fourth aspect is very, very important in terms of predation to production. So we know that we are in the age of, post or maybe industrialization or post industrialization, wherein we are into mass production, and we are enjoying all the privileges and benefits of mass production, and the question of haves and have nots and all these things are there in the background. But during this particular time, we can say that, let's say they say it as Neolithic period. During Neolithic period, there is this something called, the predation economy has moved to production economy, wherein instead of killing others, or maybe killing animals, or manipulating the environment for eating purpose, or maybe for survival purpose, people started producing certain things. So we can see that there could be so many changes that has happened in terms of environmental, global warming happened, and economic change, social changes, and then even societal changes, experiences of dividing people into caste, and the kings, and the elites, and all these things, people, all these things have come up, and we could see a change that happened in the social hierarchy. So this is very important for us to understand. When this change happened, we have something called the collective violence, or maybe something called war has actually been generated. So when we understand gender, and the gender-based violence, this is something very important, or maybe we will have to understand that the violence is actually originated as part of civilization, or as part of the the equality concept, inequality concept. So we can say that the exploitation of resources happened. Exploitation could also be in terms of environmental exploitation, or human exploitation, and even the concept of ownership. Okay, this is my territory, or this is my private space. People started owning people, and people started owning whatever, the cattle and the field, and the nature, etc., etc. So this social hierarchy itself is, let me say that, is actually has caused something called violence. Okay, so now moving on. Before that, actually, this has created some kind of internal power struggles, and even the inter-community conflicts. So what we have to understand is that violence is not inscribed in our genes. So just to clarify, it says that masculine stereotypes, or maybe the males are supposed to be aggressive, or the males are supposed to be like, they have to own the genes, or maybe so they have to own the weapons. Okay, that is there in their genes, but women are supposed to be the victims. Okay, this concept is not actually a genetic one. Okay, so what I'm trying to say is that there was a time when the collective violence was not at all there. So what we see, in terms of savage history, or maybe there was during the prehistoric times, the people were very violent, etc., etc., is actually not right. Okay, so when I have read the archaeological data, the historical data, it is said that the kind of violence was comparatively much lesser in terms of intensity, less severe, compared to the kind of violence that we are being part of now. Okay, so violence is not at all inscribed in our genes, because it is socially passed on to one generation to another, or maybe one period to another period, and it has definitely its historical and social causes, and the concept of primordial or original violence was a myth. And war is considered to be the product of societies and the culture that it is generated. So when faced with crisis, a community's resilience, this is a very important for us to understand that it depends on cooperation and mutual support, and not at all individualism and competition. Okay, so if we want to survive as a group or as a community, we need to cooperate and support each other, and not being individualistic and compete with each other. Okay, now there is this guy called Anatole Rappaport, and who has come up with this book called The Origins of Violence. If possible, maybe if you could get this book, it's a good read for us to understand the origins of violence and the approaches to the study of conflict. And he is actually arguing that the source of modern violence, including all kinds of violence, is should be understood as an imbalance between a lag in the system of values inherited from the past and the structure of science and technology that awaits no revision of values to move ahead. Okay, so this is very, maybe I consider it as a very revelation for us to understand in the context of gender-based violence, is that we had inherited a system of violence for, which has been given to us. At the same time, we have science and technology, which is much advanced, much developed. This science and technology is not revisiting or revising or rewriting the cultural values that we have, uh, we are owning them. Okay, so that's why it is says that, okay, people who are educated, people who are, what do you say, so-called cultured or civilized, are still holding the very old traditional gender values. Okay, so this is something we have to understand as a very larger phenomenon, or maybe collective phenomenon. This has been observed historically in the development of human species. So the solution would be the study of war and peace should be considered as a science, just like biology, or maybe we could include it as a political science, or maybe a social science, etc. And we should have empirical ways of understanding, experimentation, etc. And instead of going for a theory of peace, we should have a methodology of conflict and its resolution. So how conflict is being formed and how it can be resolved should be scientifically studied, because science and technology, only with the help of science and technology, we could revisit the whole idea of value system, which are actually outdated. Okay, so some of the suggestions that Anatole Rappaport has given in terms of how we can deal with the gender-based violence or any kind of violence is that mediation, education, applying the results of scientific research, even military strategy, and from a broader sense, international development. So we might need to spend a lot of time and a lot of energy, etc., on this kind of conflict resolution strategies. Now, when it comes to gender-based violence, I hope that other speakers also might have touched upon how gender is being the gender values have been, or maybe the gender roles have been structured, etc. So I'm just quickly going into that. So patriarchal values, patriarchy was considered as an early pattern of military societies, okay, wherein rape itself is considered as a weapon. Okay, so if you look at some of the old drama stories, or maybe the war stories, etc., rape was it was a very sharp, or maybe it's a very strong weapon, as that of any other weapon that is being used in the war. Okay, so if the raping, or maybe raping the other women, like maybe the women in the other country, the opponent country, etc., is considered to be something used as a very strong what do you say, ownership, okay, of getting owning those women in that particular country as well. And even the idea of the Judeo-Christian values, Greek legal, cultural ideologies, and even the common law legal code, I'm talking from a very Western perspective, also supported the idea of the natural aspect of patriarchy. And even male domination and male superiority is considered as something very natural. So violence towards women is a very natural expression, so everything is natural, right? So male should be dominant and female should be submissive, and that is natural. So historically and legally, and we considered or we appreciated, we accepted the idea of patriarchal imbalance. So, we know that as part of our colonial, culture, and rest of the post-colonial, IBC, etc., whatever the education, the kind of work culture that we are having, the family structure, all these things have its own connection with something called the Western historical aspect of how gender. How gender-based violence is also imbibed into all these social systems. So therefore, something very important to remember also is that even though all these things were happening, the 18th century cultural paradigm of liberalism rejected male dominance, lessened the manifestation of patriarchy, but they have allowed the violence towards women to stay. Okay, so without removing the cultural memory of GBV, gender-based violence, the violence was continued, but the kind of reformation was questioning the male dominance and patriarchal values, etc. Okay, so something we have so many examples to give, but I thought maybe we'll just have a look at this and Shakespeare's drama, The Taming of the Shrew. the character Kate, she was mourning over, how she is actually, becoming a prey or becoming a victim to her husband, or maybe the male protagonist. And she was saying that thy husband is thy Lord, thy life, thy keeper, thy head, thy sovereign, one that cares for thee, and for thy maintenance commits his body to painful labor both by sea and land, to watch the night in storms, the day in cold, whilst thou liest warm at home, secure and safe. So it is very difficult job description for women to do, but they are supposed to do it. Okay, fine. So according to UN Declaration of the Elimination of Violence Against Women, this is the definition. So if you have an exam or something, I thought of giving you as a definition, is that this is called, gender-based violence. Any act that results in physical, sexual, and psychological harm. Psychological harm or suffering to women, including threats of such acts, coercion, or arbitrary deprivation of liberty, whether occurring in public or in private life. So we are familiar with the initial part, but it is also important to see that deprivation of liberty, deprivation of personal freedom, or maybe cognitive freedom, or freedom in any kind of, any realm, any dimension, is also considered as a gender-based violence. Okay, now what I would like to do is that I just would like you people to do a small exercise. Please take your laptop or phone or something, and then I'm just copying this link and I'll be putting into this. Did you get this? Hello?
Yes, it's there in the chat box now.
Yeah. All of you, please copy this link, and there is a question for you. And can you all answer that question? Participants, did you understand what I said?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Could you get this question? What are the types of forms of violence that comes to your mind when you hear about gender-based violence? Please respond. All your answers will appear in the screen here. Yeah, good. Yes, please go on. Let's see how many answers we can get. We have 35 participants, right? I think we should get more answers. Yeah. Okay.
So one response is typed in the chat box.
Okay, I'll have a look. Domestic sexual, domestic violence, sexual violence. Okay, fine. Yeah. Okay. So are you done? Anything else? We should have more. There are so many types. Shall we have more? As far as this group is considered, physical, emotional abuse, and rape is considered to be, the most commonly occurring, or gender-based violence. And yeah, sexual violence is there. Yeah, mental could be, I think, emotional violence, emotional abuse, mental, emotional, sexual harassment, war-related, domestic, wire, attack, deprivation, sexual. So cyber violence. Okay, can you explain this part more? Cyber-related, voyeurism, yeah, very important. Cyber-related violence. We are seeing so many kinds of incidents these days. Cyber-based violence. Anyone? You can keep typing. Hello? Yeah, slut shaming is there. Yeah. Slut shaming in medias, Dr. Shani.
Stalking.
Yeah, financial. Yeah, stalking. Yeah, then, yeah, you can unmute and respond, okay? You can't type it. Cyberbullying. Yeah. Yeah, stalking, yes. Hacking, is hacking part of cyberbullying? Cyber violence?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Cyber.
Yeah. Anything else that you see in the cyber world?
Actually, if we upload some pictures of us, for example,
Yeah.
especially the women who are in their 30s, I'm in the 30-year-old category.
Yeah.
So if we put
Yeah.
some pictures like shorts or something, they started saying derogatory words and other abusing is there.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, fine. I think I'll stop here. So we can see that most of, even though most of you have written physical or maybe sexual, and even emotional abuse as something very, very commonly occurring. That is something that we could see, isn't it? But we can see that when it comes to workplace, okay, the kind of discrimination that we are having, or when we are traveling in public, transport or public place, or maybe someone is addressing, men and women and LGBTQI community, okay, they use different words, right? The language that we use, for everything, like, body shaming and whatever that, like, it's actually there in, the routine behavior, or maybe day-to-day activities of all human beings, okay? Men should be like that, women should be like this, or LGBTQI community. I'm saying like LGBTQI is it's a broad, very broad category, but just to tell it in a very easier and simpler manner, I'm just using that term. So there should be like this. So we can see that this is a long list of forms of gender-based violence, and some of which we have experienced, some of which we have seen, others are experiencing, some of us, some of it we have seen in media, newspaper, etc., etc. Moving on to our content part, and I'm just going to put another link here. This is a question, this is a ranking kind of activity. So please rank your opinion. Okay, the message goes like this. You get the chat, the link in chat.
Yes, it is there in the chat now.
Okay, thank you. Okay. This is the question. Is violence against women structured in the way gender roles are socialized? You can take three, you can answer only one's okay. So one person or maybe one ranking has come as totally agree. I think it's given by two people. Yeah, shall we have more response quickly, please? To a great extent, okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Fine. So there are 12 people responded. So must be 6 of you have said totally agree, and 6 of you have an opinion of to a great extent, right? Shall we have more, please? I'm just curious. We have only 12 participants, Dr. Chinju. There is an answer, not at all. The 13th person, right? Yeah, we have 25.
Yes, we have at least 20 participants online now.
Okay. You can respond in chat also. It is okay. Like, only thing is this answer would be confidential, that's why. Yeah. Okay, fine. Okay, so the answer, like this particular group is saying mostly in terms of whether there is a socialization involved in terms of gender roles or maybe gender-based violence is actually they have given answer to a great extent. Okay, and next rank. Okay, it goes the other way around. Okay, I think I'll have to stop. Would you like to respond again? 15 of you. Can you make it quickly? The first answer comes to your mind, please. Okay. Okay, fine. So now most of you have said that, totally agree. And some of you have said that, to a great extent, so socialization, gender socialization play a role in violence, right? And there is, I don't know how many of you have answered the third one, not at all. Okay, maybe as is an online session, maybe, and we have less time, I'll not be able to, call out your names and find you like who has answered this and all. Okay, let me anyway stop here. Just for your reflection on, what do you actually think about it? Okay, so now we'll move on. Okay, now see what's actually happening as the consequences of gender-based violence. Okay, I'm actually going very fast now because we have that video also to be played. I'll have to stop at 3 o'clock, isn't it, Dr. Chinju? Hello?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Yeah, okay. So according to World Economic Forum, they have a gender gap report survey had done in 2006, and they found that there is a gender gap existing in 155 countries. So it is 156 countries, and India is, getting a rank of 140th, which means that there is a big, there's a very large gender gap existing in terms of men, women, and they have not done studies on LGBTQI. Okay, so we don't have any idea about that. And we have gender inequality that is being observed and put forth by UNDP, United Nations Development Program, in 2019, if I'm not wrong. It very definitely, very clearly shows that gender inequality is a human rights violation, and gender equality should be a basic human right. And sexual violence and exploitation is happening because of gender inequality. And the third aspect, according to WHO, is they have found that women's physical, mental, sexual, and reproductive health are also affected because of the gender-based violence. And they said that 1/3, that is 30% of women in a relationship experienced some form of physical violence by their intimate partner in their lifetime, and 30% of murders of women are committed by a male intimate partner. So we can see the extent of violence, that is maybe the consequence of, violence that is going on around us. And especially during lockdown, Dr. Nirmala was, mentioning about what kind of testing time that we are having right now, in terms of gender-based violence and lockdown. And we can see that there is an increase, 50% rise in domestic violence, especially during lockdown. And this is a case going to explain all that. And the media like newspaper, Times of India and Hindu, they have explained, or they have given the title as like whether gender-based violence during lockdown is considered as a shadow pandemic. Okay, is it a shadow pandemic, and is it going to be the next pandemic? Because there is a huge rise of domestic violence, murder, and suicide that was against women and LGBTQI community. This is actually, a picture that has got from Google image. Talks about Karnataka helpline numbers for people who are trapped at home. So you can just see that, to the down part of this. What are the effects of lockdown on women? And there is an increase in domestic violence. They are trapped in domestic space. and they're cut off from support systems because they have difficulty, severe difficulty in getting, reaching to people whom they can get help, and the increased burden of household work, disruption of livelihood, and people who were into daily wages and all those things, their financial stability is also being disturbed, and restricted access to sexual and reproductive health, and even restricted freedom is there. Okay, now it's not actually an Indian phenomenon. We can say that's overall in the entire world. There are many cases, okay, wherein there is definitely an increase of domestic violence that is actually happening there. And not only that, the violence, we need a special attention or special concern in terms of how transgenders are being affected in terms of their health, livelihood, and even violence, jobs, finance. They're already being discriminated. They're already being socially distanced, and more than that, they have actually been led their own, so they don't have anything. They don't have anything else. They're supposed to go out from the rented house that they are staying, because the owners were saying that they'll be transmitting corona more frequently as they're involved in sex work, begging, and other kind of sex related jobs, etc. So you can see that actually, the number of anxiety, depression, even suicides, even murders are also reported, okay, among transgenders. Okay, now this is actually, a huge picture, that gives 9 different ways or pathways of dealing with violence against women and children. And some of the responses or solutions against violence against women and children in COVID-19 that government, civil society, and international and community-based organizations can help. And the domestic violence needs to be tackled. We have to strengthen our law. The regular stuff that's being that everybody would be talking about, and psychosocial support should be given. Domestic violence helpline should be open. Online counseling should be given. And what do you say? The Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act. They should be effective. There should not be any delay in dealing with the registered cases as part of this law and all that. All these things have been discussed, and we could see this is some of the very common thing that we could see everywhere. Okay, now what I just wanted to spend 5 minutes on the psychology part of violence. This is something that we have just discussed before, that the millimeter activity is just want to bring this aspect here. Gender social, or we have been learned, or we have been modeled, or asked to imitate certain kinds of gender related behaviors, or gender expected behavior from birth, or or maybe younger years, we can say that. So therefore we have something called gender schemas that are being developed in among the children. So we could say that gender schema is actually a word that is taken from social psychology. It says that the way a schema is an organizing structure that helps simplify and categorize new information. Okay, so when you see a human being, you don't perceive, you don't understand that person only as a human being. You understand the person as in terms of their gender, the color of their skin, the dress that they wear, maybe sometime we'll be able to predict, we'll be able to guess their caste, religion, occupation, etc., in a geography, which state they are coming from, so we put them into different categories called schemas. So gender schemas is also something called, there are 2 kinds of gender schema: superordinate gender schemas and very more narrow version of schema. Anyway, this gender schema theory is something that helps an young person to understand the gender expected behavior. Okay, so whatever that's being given to them, whatever that's being seen to them, will be fed into their cognition, be reflected in their behavior. So therefore, we have something called gender scripts, which are very difficult, which will be very complicated to change later on, as the child, grows by. And that would be the reflection, or that would be the behind, story of gender roles and gender stereotypes. And this will be reinforced, okay? If you behave, according to the gender expected behavior, you will be reinforced. And if there is any deviance, you will be punished for that. Okay, so I also would like to add two aspects to it, something called de-individuation. When it comes to gender-based violence, it is de-individuation is a very important process to understand. It is a phenomenon in which people engage in seemingly impulsive, deviant, and sometimes violent acts in situations in which they believe they cannot be personally identified. Okay, so when we say that, okay, gang rape, or maybe stalking, okay, which says that, any woman, okay, it could be a strange woman, any woman can be collectively attacked, okay, because the society they don't consider woman as an individual. All right, and dehumanization is something a little more serious. It says that the human property, individual, the woman behind, the human behind something called womanhood is being, it's not, accepted, or it's not being, what do you say, given to them, given to women, or including LGBTQI community. I'm just, giving you some examples of it. I think that, like, when I'm explaining, you are reading all these advertisements also, the homophobia, maybe, what to say, this Mother's Day, get back to the job that really matters. And Hema Malini's, starting from Hema Malini, all the Lex advertisement that talks about beauty and, denying the competence of the actress, and not, their beauty is more important than their competence. Okay, now, when it comes to dehumanization, how the dehumanization actually working is very important to understand. There is a theory called infrahumanization theory, wherein the women memories, okay, the nostalgia and memories are denied. Okay, the secondary emotions are not considered to be important for the outgroup. Outgroup, I mean women and LGBTQI. In group is so-called males. Okay, so that's being degraded. Okay, so we can say that there's a lot of trolls regarding women gossip together, or women women meeting, that whole idea of, like, I have actually, you were in my tummy for those stuff. Okay, so women are not supposed to have memories. Women are not supposed to have what do you say, nostalgia. This is actually again a dehumanization aspect that's happening. And again, the dual perspective of humanness. You can see this picture. In one side, there's a nagging woman, and another side you have a hypersexual woman. Okay, so you need a hypersexual woman, but you don't need a nagging wife, right? Okay, and the third one is dehumanized perception, wherein it offers a cognitive perspective related to treating others as less than human. Okay, so you can see that warmth is always associated with women, and competence is associated with men. Okay, so therefore a male leader is more accepted than a female leader. And again, mind perception framework, it considers how people perceive the cognition of others. You can see that women are not supposed to think. Okay, so just see this joke, wherein human husbands are for women who can't think for themselves. Okay, women shouldn't be, they shouldn't be thinking entities. Okay, so I'm not comfortable. Maybe the husband is not comfortable, or a male counterpart is not comfortable if the female counterpart is thinking entity. Okay, so therefore the dehumanization aspect is very directly related to gender-based violence, wherein the humanity, humanness, human nature, or human experiences are denied when one group is perceived as less than, which is very obviously happening in GBV. Now, coming from there, something very important for us to look at. Okay, apart from all the preventive methods and solutions that I have shown you before, is something called superordinate goal. Superordinate goal, coming up with the superordinate goal is considered to be very, very essential to deal with intergroup conflicts. Okay, therefore, I just would like you to bring a new idea. It's not a new idea, but a solution that is not actually always been, explained, as a gender-based violence is, considering, neutralizing the gender aspect. Okay, so you have something called gender neutral parenting, wherein you'll be parenting a human. Okay, you are not ascribing any gender roles, or like starting from the toys that's being chosen to them and the dress that they wear, or whatever, gender related aspect, that's all being taken out. Instead of that, the child is being considered as a human being than a boy or a girl. Okay, so the idea of the baby, okay, so the baby is the concept over there, and which could be understood from the idea of gender creative parenting. And even if you read more about feminist parenting, you will be getting more idea about what do I mean as bringing a superordinate goal, gender neutrality as a superordinate goal in dealing with it. And second method is actually can be done by the so-called males, I mean the privileged males, and the video that we'll be showing is based on that. It actually involves a lot of personal negotiations and decisions. I think you will be having an assessment based on this. This actually, it's actually a group of, governmental, non-government organization called Promundo, and they have done this, a poster survey wherein how can men help prevent gender-based violence and advance gender equality, get involved in childcare and form closer connections with your children from the beginning, create safe spaces for children from the home to the school system and beyond, raise boys to break free from harmful stereotypes, as content creators commit to inclusive storytelling and avoid common harmful gender stereotypes, then support comprehensive sexuality education that challenges harmful gender norms and relations, seek opportunities to really listen to women's stories, acknowledging their experiences, and then inform other women about it, donate to and support specialist women's organizations and anti-violence services such as domestic violence helplines, refuges and shelters, and rape crisis centers, remove barriers to women's economic advancement and to positions of leadership. Okay, so this is actually, my take on these two aspects, coming up with a superordinate goal and bring male counterparts very actively in dealing or preventing gender-based violence. Okay. It's going to be my last slide. What are the policy and program responses that we could make, especially during pandemic, in terms of, helping or dealing with gender-based violence. I'll stop here right now. I would like Dr. Chinchu to play the video.